Guys, welcome in. I'm Brittany, and I'm joined with my co-hosts Kristen White and Kelly Alexander. We are so excited that you guys are here tonight. So tonight we are going to be talking about PCOS. So you're going to hear from both Kelly and I who have experienced it, and Kristen knows all of the science behind it and why the drops help PCOS. But what is PCOS? That's kind of how I wanted to start. PCOS is a endocrine disorder. It has a lot of different symptoms. Kelly's going to talk about those a little bit, but it's different for every woman. It stands for polycystic ovarian syndrome, and currently there's no cure. They'll give you a bunch of medicine that can treat your symptoms, but there is no cure. And I am going to go ahead and share a slide for you, and Kelly is going to tell you a little bit about her symptoms, what she's experienced, and maybe we're going to get going. Whoops. Can y'all see that?
Yes.
I'm not sure why it's not full screen, but we'll go with that for now. How's that? All right, Kelly. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Make sure you unmute. What kind of symptoms? I know you're going to see a lot of symptoms on the screen, but I actually looked for a graphic that had all of the symptoms of PCOS. And guess what? There's not one out there. We're going to have to make one. That's because there are so many. And when I was talking to Kelly, she has so many different symptoms that are not on here. I thought it would be great for her to kind of come in and say, yes, this is what people have, but I've also experienced this. So if you guys have any of these symptoms, know that tonight you're going to hear something that is going to help you alleviate some of these symptoms. So Kelly, kind of tell us what you've experienced with your PCOS.
With myself, it started ages 18, 19. It started with a super long cycle, and then it got to where I didn't have a cycle. I was always very active, could eat anything I wanted to, never gain weight. And then all of a sudden, I started gaining weight, started eating much healthier, no matter how I changed my diet, exercised all the time, I would still gain weight. And I started having pain in my lower sides. And to come to find out that was ovarian cysts rupturing, which is not so bad on me now. But at the time, I wanted to have children. And if the ovarian cyst gets so big, they can twist the ovary, cut off the tubes, or if the cyst gets too big and ruptures, it can cause you to lose the ovaries. I had surgery to remove ovarian cysts 7 times from the age of 20 to 25. I think the worst symptom for me was infertility. My husband and I went through 5 years of infertility treatments. We did end up with our little miracle babies. Another thing is premature birth. Someone with PCOS has increased likelihood of giving birth prematurely, and mine were born 9 weeks early. One thing when I was pregnant, though, is I had never felt better. I mentioned that to my doctor years later, and she's like, well, that's probably the only time in your life your hormones were normal like they should have been. So, another thing that is often overlooked is dark skin at the back of the neck. And that leads to, or that's one of the signs of insulin resistance, which happens when the DHEA levels trigger extra insulin, glucose, and then that triggers extra testosterone. Um, Recently, I found out that it's not just at the back of the neck, it can be in bands or lines around the front of the neck. Um, I had a lot of inflammation and migraines, hormonal migraines.
So what I hear from you, Kelly, is that because I don't have a lot of what you had. It's different from everybody, but you can't even find a graphic because there's so many symptoms. And 70% of women that have PCOS are undiagnosed. So I think this here is to kind of raise awareness. So if you guys have any of these symptoms, all of these symptoms, talk to your doctor. I will tell you that we're now going to turn it over to Kristen. She's going to kind of tell you, Kelly and I found something along with many others that has helped us really start balancing our bodies naturally. And Kristen is the one with all the knowledge on why our drops work. So she is actually one of my friends. She owns a gym over in Jackson, one of the top gyms in Tennessee. She's trained D1 athletes, but she is going to tell you all about why they work. So I'm going to stop my share and spotlight you, Kristen.
Okay.
That's all right.
All right. Well, thank you. Well, I have to say, I respect these ladies so much for getting on here and sharing their stories because this is not an easy subject to talk about. It's to get um, in front of all these people and talk about your personal health journey, especially when it's so personal like this. And I don't have a personal testimony when it comes to PCOS. I've just done some digging when it comes to PCOS and insulin resistance. And that's really what causes many of the symptoms that these women experience. And there's really no known cause for this problem. Like there's no linkage back. They don't know if it's genetic. They don't know if it's environmental. They don't know, like there's no real rhyme or reason what's making this happen. So it's really frustrating. And a lot of women will walk around not knowing they have it for a really long time. They just live either tired, they live with their bodies gaining weight, and they don't know why. Like they live with their bodies not releasing weight for a long time, and they live in pain. And there's this perpetual cycle. And the big deal is that they are insulin resistant, and all these other things start happening. And then it gets to obviously more and more things start happening, and then they realize, oh, this is what's going on. So I want to talk a little bit about the insulin resistance part, because that's how I feel like the drops can be beneficial. And I always put out the staple that we don't heal, treat, cure, diagnose anything here. We just have found some things that work for us. Um, and, I use the drops for a different reason, but Kelly and Brittany have been using them for this, and this has helped them. But insulin resistance could be linked to polycystic ovarian syndrome or diabetes or other issues. So what is insulin resistance? Because people might be on here saying, what is that? Like, what is insulin resistance? Well, it's basically your body not being sensitive to insulin, which is what you want. You absolutely want as much as you can to have your body sensitive to insulin. But when you are insulin resistant, it means your cells are really no longer responding to insulin. So we know insulin is a hormone produced in our pancreas, right? And all hormones are really messengers. It's given a signal to tell something to do. So insulin's going out to the bloodstream, and really it's telling your cells to use sugar, because insulin is released when sugar is in the bloodstream, but it's being sent out to your cells and to saying, oh, I want this, I need to use this sugar for energy. But if your cells are not sensitive to that insulin, it's really not going to use or uptake that sugar. And sugar is giving your cells energy, right? It's all your cells need glucose to function, all of them. And I know we get told sugar is bad, but almost all foods are broken down into some sort of sugar molecule in the body. Like whether it's a protein, a carb, a simple carb, a complex carb, it's going to get broken down into some sort of sugar molecule. And but if you're insulin resistant, it's insulin just continues to rise and continues to rise, and you have all this excess sugar floating in the bloodstream. One, your cells aren't uptaking that sugar, so they're not getting energy. So I don't know if Kelly said it or if Brittany has noticed, they're probably tired. They're exhausted. Their cells are not getting the energy they want to thrive. And that's a problem. So, the cells aren't even getting to do their job efficiently because they're not getting their fuel. So that's one big symptom that's a problem. But it also, if we have all this extra glucose floating in the bloodstream, where's it going? What's going to other organs? And specifically, when we're talking about this issue, we're going to talk about the ovaries, because it's going to go to the ovaries, right? It's going to go to other places too. It could go to the heart. It could go to your liver. It could go to other places. But we're talking about the ovaries here. And that's going to be a problem because excess sugar will increase production of androgens. Well, I don't know if Kelly or Brittany has experienced this, but androgens are male hormones. So that's where they might notice, or people with polycystic might notice the excess growth of facial hair, or even male pattern baldness. Like these are all real symptoms. And I'm sorry, as a female, like that doesn't sound fun, right? You're already hurting, you're self-conscious, you're weight gaining, and then you have to deal with all of that. Like, come on. Like this that's just not, it doesn't even sound fair. So to me, managing or trying to find ways to manage this insulin resistance would be very critical. And there are some, there are some things like watching your food. Obviously, we want to keep your foods in low glycemic. You don't want to do foods that are going to spike blood sugar because, the insulin's going to continue to go up. But let me also say, when you are insulin resistant, you probably even have an increased risk of binge eating. You have increased cravings for sugar and carbohydrates because you always have sugar floating around. Your blood sugar is so unstable, like it's not even your fault. We're taught this: when you eat sugar, you crave sugar, right? But if you're always you always have sugar floating, you're probably going to be craving it. It's just like that's how it feels. And I don't know if they've experienced that. I would love to hear. But guess what that is going to actually cause too? Weight gain. So you're like you're just in trouble here because you've got excess sugar in your bloodstream, and then you're craving sugar, then you're tired. Like no wonder you're struggling to keep weight off. So these are just some symptoms, some issues. So we want to try to get your body and improve the insulin sensitivity. That is the goal here. Now, when we talk about the slenderized drops, what we like to call the skinny drops, that's just the nickname, right? These are a 2-bottle system. One is a homeopathic blend, 11 plants. The other bottle is plants and vitamins. And the first bottle is called SlenderX. Now, when talking about homeopathy, means we don't heal, treat, cure, diagnose anything, but homeopathy means to heal within, to figure out what's going on with the body and get to the root of the problem. Now, this bottle is going to help with thyroid, endocrine system. It's actually going to help with controlling food cravings. There's actually 4 ingredients in here that actually help with controlling cravings, making you full faster, and actually calming nerves. You know how nice that would be if you're probably dealing with this. You're probably anxious about it anyways. There's some things in here that actually help with the nervous system, brain function, emotional distress. And there's also things in here that help with getting your metabolism boosted. So we're trying to balance the system, get it working in its favor again, and get your body being sensitive to insulin. That is also why we give the approved food list, which is low glycemic, which means we're going to run low sugar. We're going to run foods that don't spike blood sugar, and they're going to be very whole foods. They're going to be proteins. They're going to be fruits that are low in sugars. They're going to be healthy fats and a lot of vegetables. That's going to keep your blood sugar as stable as possible. And it's also going to provide your body with a lot of micronutrients. So if you're not doing like a superfood or a vitamin and mineral, this is going to try to load your body up with as much micronutrients as possible just by food, which your cells absolutely need to thrive as well. So that's bottle 1. Now, bottle 2 is called Accelerate. And in this bottle, we have methylated B12. So there's no need to convert this over. It is ready to go. You need B12 for all biological activity. Like, it's essential, okay? So this is the perfect form of B12. We have ashwagandha rhodiola in this bottle. This is actually my favorite 2 ingredients, maybe of the whole pack, because this is going to help with cognitive function, sleep quality, which you need proper sleep here. I don't know if these ladies sleep well, but I would actually like to hear that if
The sleep was the first thing I noticed about the drops.
okay.
I was actually sleeping.
And so your sleep cycles were probably not that great in the beginning.
Horrible.
Because when your insulin and blood sugar is off, you don't sleep good. But when you start getting it more stabilized, you will be able to get in better sleep cycles. And this is going to just help with that mentally as well. But I love these two ingredients specifically because they do help with cortisol, because they do keep your mind balanced. They keep your well-being centered. And guess what that does? So if cortisol is up here, guess what is naturally up here? Even if you've been running the best diet possible, insulin, because it's a sister hormone to cortisol. So if I can get cortisol down naturally, maybe I can still get some of that insulin down. Like it's just neck and neck. So I love those two ingredients because even for me, like I don't want my cortisol up just because I don't want my insulin up, and I don't have PCOS. So for these two women, those are really two important ingredients. And then we have biotin, which helps the body with enzymes, carry out their jobs with all things cellularly, and rose hips, which is really good for inflammation. So to me, this is the perfect package with trying to get your body stabilized and getting some insulin sensitivity back, because it's going to teach you how to eat. It's going to promote what I like to call, hopefully, balance again. And then, of course, making you feel better and giving some energy and getting hopefully that metabolism boosted, and maybe making you feel like even just going for walks again. So I hope that was helpful. I think we're going to deep dive a little more in a couple weeks to some more of this, but I think Brittany is going to tell her testimony and how the drops have helped her lose over 100 pounds now.
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. I really appreciate you coming on and going through that with us. I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm actually going to ask Kelly if there's anything that she would like to add, because I do have her slide up. And something I did not know about Kelly when we started kind of collaborating on this project. Sorry, y'all, I'm trying to get it up. Started kind of collaborating on this project was that she has two beautiful babies. And so she started kind of sharing that story with me. And so I love that she sent me this picture down in the bottom right. And then maybe tell a little bit about your journey, how the drops have made you feel, Kelly. I know we talked about your symptoms earlier, but how have they made you feel, and how long is it taking you, and how much weight and all that kind of stuff?
Well, I started the drops. It was either August 27th or 28th of 2023. I didn't start them to lose weight. I was solely focused on the hormone balancing part of it. And I'd recently had foot surgery, so I didn't really take measurements. And the only reason I knew how much I weighed in the beginning was because they had weighed me before surgery. After going back to work, everyone's like, "How much weight did you lose? What have you been doing?" I'm like, "Well, I've been laying there eating," which I ate. I've worked with a personal trainer for a long time, and she had kind of given me a foods list, but it wasn't the slenderized food list, but they kind of mirror each other, the no dairy, things like that. So I was already eating kinda to plan, but I had, you know, my little Diet Coke habit go on the side. Um, the first thing I noticed when I started the drops about 2 weeks in, my husband said, "Sleep good last night?" I was like, "Well, yeah." He said, "Well, you beat me to sleep." That's unheard of because usually I was keeping him awake with my tossing and turning, trying to get to sleep. Um, then it got to where I would sleep through his 3:50 AM alarm going off. I wouldn't even know when he left, so I was getting solid, good sleep. And, after going back to work, I weighed for the first time with a boot on my foot, and I was down 8 pounds, and that was the first part of October. So in a full month and maybe 2 weeks on the drops, I was down 8 pounds. By the end of the year, I was down 18, and by the end of that January, I was down 24, and I've kept it off ever since. Did have one little setback. I recently learned that steroids also trigger your insulin to go up and your insulin resistance. And the steroids made it to where I didn't feel my drops as much. Thank goodness I was able to get off of those and get the weight back off. But the drops, the sleep, the energy, and just it's hard to explain, but I just overall feel so much better. And I have my blood work done every 3 months, and my testosterone, cortisol, um, prolactin, all of that was within normal range within 3 months.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Tell us a little bit about, you said infertility really bothered you. That was one of the hardest things for you. Do you want to share anything on that? Because we do have your beautiful babies here.
Yes, I never growing up, I, played baby dolls, whatever. I just didn't really, I wasn't one of those that just wanted to be a mom. But something about when I started going through all these issues, met my husband, it's like that desire to have a child, it hits and it hits hard. And then you start trying. You think, well, this is natural. This is something this is going to be the easy part of my life.
Mhm.
At the time, I was working full time, going to college full time, and um, it didn't happen. And then we went through fertility treatments, and that was the medications that they give you during fertility treatments will turn you into a literal crazy person. One of them I took was Lupron, and I do consider that one of the worst mistakes of my life because it completely changed everything. I gained 40 pounds in 2 months. I went from a size 2 to a size 2, 3 to a size 9, 10, sometimes 11, all in 2 months. And I came out with my blessings, so I'm glad I went through it.
Right.
But that desire, and you're seeing all these people having children, and then it's like, what's wrong with me?
Mhm. So I wanted you to hit on that, Kelly, leading into my testimony, is because my PCOS has kept me from having children as well. With the fertility and all did not really take for us, and that's okay because we all have our own path. I'm a dog mom, and I'm happy about that.
Mhm.
And so I'm actually just going to tell you a little bit very quickly about my journey. I was diagnosed at 22, but I can tell you it had been going on for many, many years. Um, what they did was gave me metformin. I had zero sugar issues, and they gave me birth control. And it really didn't do anything. Kristen could probably tell you all the science behind that. I mean, all it did was cause my sugar to bottom out because I was taking metformin and then I was not eating all day. And it became a horrible cycle. But I'd gained 80 pounds that year. Some of my symptoms, Kristen had mentioned it. I had a huge bald spot in the back of my head. As a woman, it's embarrassing. I had facial hair that I did not want to have. And I'm not talking about like little light facial hair. I'm talking about dark facial hair. Um, and those are types of things that women with PCOS go through. So when I started looking at this product, when I started this product, in the first 2 days, I started my cycle. I've not had one since I was 22 without the fertility doctor inducing it. So I knew that they were going to help me then. But I want to say I was right at 400 pounds when I started the drops. And yes, my weight loss has been great. But Kristen had told me, and I believe she said it earlier, I was active. I am solid muscle. I was kickboxing 4 days a week. Jeremy and I just got back from a primitive hiking trip. Like we work out and we didn't eat carbs. I thought I was doing everything right. The fact is, as Kristen mentioned, if you're getting any kind of insulin, any kind of sugar, carbs, and it's turning into insulin, then I was blocking my weight loss. So everything I was doing was wrong, even though I thought it was right. Our bodies are all so different. And we're going to talk about that in the weeks coming forward on how to do for your body. But I was 400 pounds, guys, and nobody wanted to be that way. And my doctor looked at me and said, "You're the healthiest fat girl that I've ever met." And as a woman that was a size 3 her entire life, an athlete, it's hard to hear. I already was looking at my body differently. And so it was time for a change. And I did not think the drops were going to work for me. A lot of people will tell you that. I had tried everything, the phenermine, if you can name it, I've tried it besides weight loss surgery. But they did. I'm now down over 100 pounds. But like Kelly, my other wins are just as important. I have no more migraines. They come few and far between. And I'm off 8 medications. My doctor took me off those medications. Like Kristen said, we don't cure, treat, or diagnose. But I'm off anxiety medication, my breakthrough anxiety medication. I'm off, the metformin that they had given me, 2,500 milligrams of metformin. I was having all the side effects of metformin. I'm able to come off of that. So I just feel healthier all the way around. I have a long way to go. I still want to lose a lot more weight. But what I can tell you is I don't hurt anymore. And I know for the first time that I can do it because of these drops. I have full faith in myself that I can do it because it helps curb those sugar and carb cravings that Kristen was talking about that we really can't control with PCOS. So what I can say to you is that if you are experiencing any of these symptoms at all, then reach out to the person that invited you here tonight. I want to say, and Kristen, Kelly, do you guys want to add anything before we close out?
No, I think you're
Mhm.
covering it well. We'll be back in 2 weeks. And like you said, if you have more questions, reach out. And if they can't answer it, they can reach out to us.
That's right. That's right. So I appreciate both of you ladies. Kelly, thank you for being so vulnerable. And Kristen, thank you for supporting us. When I first met Kristen, she was one of the ones that said to me, I know that you are going through so much more than a normal person is going through trying to lose weight. And feeling seen meant a lot to me. So next or in 2 weeks, March 31st at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, we're going to go a little bit deeper into insulin resistance and how we can eat to support our PCOS, not flare it up. But if you have any questions that you would like any of us to answer on the Zoom, message them and we'll kind of pull a couple from there if you have, if you're here just seeing this for the first time or if you've been here a while. So thank you all for being here. Oh, Kristen, I've still got you spotlighted. So, all right, guys. Well, we appreciate you so much and we will get this recording out to you soon.